All right, perfect. Okay. Before we begin, I do want to preface this by saying we're working within the confines of an $880,000 budget. So which means that we're going to have to fund organizations at a rate of about 45 to 50%. But with that, I'll give you the next 3-ish minutes to present your organization and what you need money for.
Okay, perfect. So I did ask for $5,300. And basically, what are away tournaments, and the tournament fees range from about $350 to $400. And we do want to bring 2 teams to each tournament this year. We have a total of 25 girls, so that would be 2 teams at $350, $400 for 4 tournaments. So that's our biggest thing that we basically be budgeting for. That goes hand in hand with lodging, so hotels for 2-night stay. Again, for both teams, 25 girls, probably be around like 5 rooms. Also for travel, we probably would bring like 5 or 6 cars. The farthest we've ever gone for a tournament is Clemson, so that's like 5.5 hours from here, which is a lot of gas. We would love to be able to reimburse all the girls that drive there to and from. I kind of put that out in the budget. Lodging, $2,100. Programming, that was where I put the tournament total fees at $2,000. Capital expenditures. That was basically just for supplies. We haven't had new balls in the past 2 semesters, so I was hoping to get 4 new balls. I just put them as like $25 per ball. We actually have tryouts right now, and we don't have enough balls to do certain drills. So new equipment would be amazing. For clothing, since we're going to more away tournaments, we want to look more uniform. So we wanted to do custom shooting shirts for all the girls that come out to the tournaments, just to look neat, collective. And then for supplies,
You seem to be cutting out a bit.
so with the UNC boys team, boys basketball team, basically the purpose of that would be just to interact, get each other's phone numbers, be able to plan maybe like benefit nights together or host like something in the pit that would benefit both of our clubs. They reached out to us and they said, if you're interested, please get back and we'll be able to like tell you how much money we're asking for. So we're holding off until we get our budget, so we can be able to figure that out. Real quickly, finally, we got interest budgeting, but it's at $5,300. I think that pretty much covers.
All right. Okay, so in terms of travel, we do have to fund at that
Right.
rigid for trips of more than 100 miles, 33 cents per mile per car. And
Right.
without those locations and the distances, it would be hard to appropriate that. But that seems to be the only issue in terms of what you've applied for. So, I guess next going into, since we will need to cut this down to fit the budget, which categories do you want us to prioritize?
Probably programming, just so that we have enough funds to be able to go to away tournaments. Everything else is not as significant that we could allocate money through donations or benefit nights, but we definitely need the money because the most expensive is like a $400 away travel fee. So that would most likely be what we would want money for.
All right. Then, the tournament registration, is that put in under the programming category?
I'm pretty, that's what I'm pretty sure I put it under programming. I put it in the budget description, team
Yeah,
tournaments, but I don't know if that made it into the programming
just
section.
maybe. Yeah. Okay, cool. Then in that case, I'm going to move that we fund programming at $1,500,
Second,
lodging at $1,050,
second,
supplies at 100, and then capital expenditures, clothing and travel at $0.
second,
All right, so with that, women's club basketball has been appropriated $2,650. In terms of next steps, your organization's budget request will be finalized at the end of this month when the full Senate hears the budget bill with all other organizations' funding requests. For tonight, however, that is all we have, so thank you for coming.
Great, I really appreciate your time. Thank you guys.
Thank you. Good evening.
Hello.
All right. Before we begin, I do want to preface this by saying that we are working within the confines of an $880,000 budget. And this means that we'll have to fund organizations at a rate of about 45 to 50%. So keep this in mind as we go forward. But
Okay.
with the next 3 to 5 minutes, I will let you present your organization and what you need money for this semester.
Okay. Cool. So I'm Aisha. I'm the co-president slash treasurer of the Pleasure Activists. We're just dedicated to promoting sexual health resources to students on campus, to promote sexual health and well-being. We're looking for about $2,000, $2,048.80 exactly. And that is most of it's towards programming. And so I'll just say some of them. First is a creative group dance class, which is a free hour pole and aerial dance class for students. Um, and then also a hot quad yoga class, an erotic paint pottery class, a twerk, chop, and tone class. Um, and those are different events that we have planned for this semester that um, all would be like we would pay so that students could attend for free. So like we would cover the cost for them. And then also um, requesting about 600 in programming as well for general supplies for other events that we have, such as a sexual health trivia night, a speed dating event, a paint party, a movie night, condom bingo. And so these are like ones that we would have on campus. And then also to get sexual health supplies to give away at events, well, whether that's like in the pit, giving out like sexual health kits with contraceptives, lubes, menstrual products, condoms, dental dams, all of that. And then also, so the majority of that is all programming. And then for our creative group dance, that's in Cary. So we're also requesting $64.08 for travel reimbursement, based off of just like the mileage, 20 miles each way, so 40 miles for 3 privately owned cars to carpool with students to take them there, so they don't have to worry about like transportation there. And I think that is the majority of it. The majority of it is for programming for just different events that we have planned for this semester.
All right. Okay. It appears that you've followed all proper formulas and funding requirements. And you only applied to 2 line items. Do you have a specific preference as to where we put the money first in terms of programming or travel?
I'll say programming because the travel comes with that specific programming event. So the majority of our funds, I would say, I would want towards programming, and then the travel is for that specific event.
All right. Then in that case, I'm going to move that we fund travel at $64.80
Second.
and programming at $950.
Second.
Then with that, the pleasure activists have been appropriated $1,014.80 from the Undergraduate Senate. In terms of next steps, your organization's funding request will be finalized at the end of this month when the budget bill with all other organizations' funding requests is heard by the full Senate. For tonight, however, that is all we have for you, so thank you for coming.
Okay. Thank you guys. Y'all have a good rest of your evening.
Thanks, you too.
Bye.
Good evening with the Affirmative Action Coalition, correct?
Hi, yes, that's me.
All right. Before we get started, I do want to preface this by saying we're working within the confines of an $880,000 budget. So we will have to be funding organizations at a rate of about 45 to 50%. So keep this in mind as we go forward. But I will give you the next 3 to 5 minutes to present your organization and give a bit of an outline on what you're requesting funds for this cycle.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Affirmative Action Coalition is an organization that was founded to help maintain diversity on campus, especially in light of the Supreme Court hearing that just came out over the summer, which I'm sure you've all heard about. We were created last year to really help try to educate students on the matter, and as well as just provide a community for students to learn more about the subject and also build connections with each other, and just try to keep Carolina as positive as possible. And then now that the Supreme Court hearing has dropped, we are currently trying to actively continue to build community and continue to try to help students have that kind of feeling despite barriers that have been created recently. And so we are requesting the funding to help support our events on campus and to help our students and our members continue to learn more about affirmative action as well as how to promote diversity on campus. And so the funding will be going towards specific events, most notably our upcoming educational summit, in which we're inviting speakers from the Lawyers Committee who actually represented UNC at the Supreme Court case in October of last year, and as well as we're also working together with other organizations on campus. So that's going to be one of our larger events this semester that we're going to require some funding to help run the program and make sure that the program is successful for our students.
All right. And then if that's all, looks like all proper, ooh. Okay. Speaker fees. All right, at the end of the second event, it does say that speaker fee funds will be used to provide the honoraria as well as travel and lodging. For travel and lodging, we do have specific requirements in terms of separate categories. So funds appropriated for that would not be able to go towards the travel or lodging for these speakers, but beyond that, everything else looks like it should be good. Okay, since we will need to cut this down to fit the budget, where do you want to see the Senate's funds prioritized?
I'm not gonna lie, I don't have the budget pulled up right now, but if we could like prioritize the speaker honoraria as well as the supplies and like marketing, I think one of the categories that I filled out was like supplies. I think that would be the priority,
Okay.
or might have been capital expenditures.
You have you've requested 300 in printing and publicity, 300 in programming, and 600 in speaker fees.
Okay. In that case, let's prioritize printing and publicity. Would the okay, sorry, I have a question. Is that okay?
Yeah.
If I were to like reimburse for like premium subscriptions for like Canva or like other kind of like softwares like that, would that fall under printing and publicity? Or
I'm not entirely sure. If you request reimbursement for this and it gets denied, I would recommend you reach out to Treasurer Grodsky to handle a line item change to move those funds into whichever category would be proper for those, but that would be an issue later on.
okay.
All right, so then in that case, okay. All right, I'm going to move that we fund printing and publicity at $300. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Programming at $200
Second.
and speaker fees at $300.
Second.
All right, with that, the Affirmative Action Coalition has been appropriated $800 from the Undergraduate Senate. In terms of next steps, your organization's budget request will be finalized at the end of this month when the full Senate hears the budget bill with all other organizations that are requesting funding. That is for tonight, however, all that we have for you, so thank you for coming.
Okay, awesome. I did have one more question. Is that okay?
Yes.
So do you know where we can find our QSO ID, or if that will be like
So,
given to us once it's finalized?
Okay, so this information can be found on your organization's Heal Life page under the About tab at the bottom of the page under additional information.
Okay, I think I looked there and it was blank. Does that automatically get filled in? Or
I am not entirely sure the details of this. It's that's not the job of us to handle. That's more on the back end, either the Office of Student Life and Leadership or the Carolina Union Business Office. So one of them should have the information.
cool. All right, that's all I had. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right.
Hi, how are you?
Hello, students
Hey.
on life. All right. Before we begin, I do want to preface this by saying we're working within the confines of an $880,000 budget, which means we'll have to fund organizations at a rate of about 45 to 50%. But with this in mind, I will give you the next 3 to 5 minutes to present your organization and give an outline of what you'll need funds for.
Alrighty, well, thank you. I'm Sarah. This is Lauren. I'm the treasurer of the organization. She's the co-president. So basically what we had gone through, we have organizational meetings that we hold bi-weekly. These are usually just for like students to come. We discuss planning the bigger events. We just get together to discuss the issues and everything. And so we were requesting, let's see, our total is going to be $3,645.30. And so we'd requested a portion of that for the meetings just because we'll be holding 10 during the whole academic year. That was for one thing. We also had for, I think we did, I believe 5 different programs. If you wanna-
So we have 7 programs scheduled for this year. For printing and publicity, we are needing $45 for that. Supplies, $300. We also have a big summit coming up that we are planning to travel to in Washington, D.C. And it's about $1,400 roughly for the round trip. This is a big educational event that we are hoping to really focus on, and it's a great way to support pregnant mothers or students that are on campus, and we just want to provide the best resources we can for them. We also have several speakers coming, and we need about $50 for supplies there and $150 for honorarium purposes. And we also have several fundraising events like diaper drives, onesie drives, that we need about $250 for the programming for that.
And so, yeah, so that's gonna be basically about it. I don't know if y'all are able to see the like form that we fill out, but that one would have all the details that you need for the rest.
Yeah, we have it all. All right.
Perfect.
And okay, so first up, your application states that your group is unwilling to identify student government as its sponsor. Is this accurate?
Yes, and so we are new leaders, and that's what previous leadership had done. And so we were just following suit with that. We're not entirely clear on what that entails.
Yeah.
So it is a requirement to receive student government funding that you, at any event that is funded with student government money, identify us as the sponsor of the event.
Yes. I saw that in the bylaws, and so we're willing to put that into any of the advertisement.
Okay, cool. As long as we have that confirmation, then it's good to go.
Okay, thank
Next
you.
up, let's see, National March for Life. at this event, will you be directly lobbying the government at any point during this event?
No, sir,
No.
we will not.
Okay. And in that case, everything else seems to check out. All right. So since we will need to cut this down to that about 50% budget, which areas of funding do you want us to prioritize our efforts towards?
The summit.
The summit, please.
Okay. All right. Just doing the math here. All right. Going to move that we fund the category of travel at $465.30.
Second.
The category of lodging at $840. And the category of dues and fees at $500.
Second.
And after that, printing and publicity, programming, speaker fees, and supplies all at $0.
Second.
All right. With that, Students for Life has been appropriated $1,805.30. In terms of your next steps, your organization's budget request will be finalized at the end of this month when the full Senate hears the budget bill with all other organizations' funding requests. That is all that we have for you tonight, though, so thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank
We need
you.
to attend that meeting at the end of the month.
I'm sorry, the volume seemed to cut out there.
Oh, it's okay. The meeting at the end of the month, will we need to be present there?
You're not required to, but you are allowed to if you would like.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank y'all so much. Y'all have a wonderful night.
You too. Good evening. You're with Science Days, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
All right. Before we begin, I do want to preface this by saying that we're working within the confines of an $880,000 budget, which means that we can fund organizations at a rate of about 45 to 50%. So keep this in mind as we go forward, but I'll give you the next 3 to 5 minutes to introduce your organization and kind of outline what you are going to need funds for.
Yeah, so Science Days is a mentoring program where we go to different sites and teach elementary and middle schoolers about science. We work with sites like Communiversity, which is on campus through UNC. We work with Scroggs, McDougall, and the Global Scholars Academy. And we also have a lesson planning committee and a testing committee to come up with those experiments. Then we also, and we're asking for funding because we need educational supplies. A lot of these elementary schools don't have the supplies that we need, like even basic supplies like scissors or markers. And another thing that we wanted to ask for was funding for some new kits, like electricity circuit kits, so we can start teaching the kids physics. Up until now, we've been teaching mostly things like astronomy, chemistry, and biology, but we wanted something more hands-on and we wanted to try new experiments. And then another thing was for transportation to and from the site. Some of them are in like about 30 minutes away. So that was what we requested funding for.
All right. So on your application, it states that your willingness to identify the student government as its sponsor is in question. Can you clarify your stance on recognizing our sponsorship?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
A requirement to receive funds from student government is that all organizations agree that they will recognize student government as the sponsor in any event that was funded in part or full by our funds. So I'll need your confirmation on whether that is the case.
Yes, that'll be the case for any event that we hold if we receive
right.
funding from.
Perfect. As long as we have that confirmation here.
The president, I'm the treasurer of my club, but the president of my club says she wasn't assigned to the breakout room. Is there any way we can get her in here?
Yeah. Sorry about that.
It's all good.
There we go. Okay. So it does appear that you have applied for a little over $2,000 in the category of educational supplies, which is not a category that we fund at this time. And that's why the invalid title goes along or is on that category. But in terms of supplies and travel, which of these categories would you like us to prioritize in your or in considering funding?
Definitely supplies.
Okay. And in that case, I am going to move that we fund the category of supplies in full at $2,010.59.
Okay.
The category of travel at $400.
Second.
And the category of educational supplies at $0.
Second.
All right. With that, Science Days has been appropriated $2,410.59. In terms of next steps, your organization's budget request will be finalized at the end of this month when the full Senate hears the budget bill along with all other organizations' funding requests. In terms of tonight, though, that is all we have for you. So thank you for coming.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too.
Hello, how are you?
Good evening. One moment for us to pull up the information. All right.
And we just have one more person coming who's on our finance team.
All right.
Um,
Letting him into the breakout room now. Okay.
okay, we're all
All right.
here.
Wait,
So
before we get started, I do want to preface this by saying that we're working within the confines of an $880,000 budget. Due to this, we will have to fund organizations at a rate of about 45 to 50%. So keep that in mind as we go forward. But I will give you the next 3 to 5 minutes to introduce your organization and describe what you will need funding for this semester.
okay. First we just want to say hello, I'm Jada. And thank you so much for all being here today.
Hi, I'm Anant. We're all on the finance team at Campus Y. Thank you for hearing us out today.
I'm Nathalie. I'm also part of the finance committee with them as well.
So we first just wanted to start off with an overview of the Campus Y and then go into the details of the funding request. But to start off, the mission of the Campus Y is to provide a collaborative space that unites students, staff, faculty, and community partners in pursuit of social justice. We work locally and globally toward a more just and equitable future with a commitment to inclusion, education, and open dialogue. We are evolving as a community that advocates for positive social change through service, innovation, direct action, and mutual aid.
In the context of all student organizations, the Campus Y is the largest social justice group on campus, impacting an estimated 3,000 to 4,000 students each year with its programming. Alongside our scheduled programming, the Campus Y is also a reliable source for mutual aid, a general safe space for all, and one of the first places students look to on campus after major events occur, for comfort and action alike. The organization has 16 active committees and just approved the addition of 2 new committees this past week.
In knowing all of this, we created our funding request with the advice of each subcommittee's leaders in mind. The largest portion of our request stems from supplies, so almost every committee needs supplies for their respective events, ranging from supplies for tutoring sessions in the Refugee Community Partnership to compost maintenance for compost mates to Lego robotics kits for SOAR STEM outreach, achievement, recreation, and all the various requests in between. We've also budgeted a substantial amount for building rentals, a majority which comes from the execs committee's bookings for the Alumni Gala and Student Leaders Forum. The next 2 biggest categories in our funding requests are programming and speaker fees. The majority of our committee's activities center around programming and education for both the UNC community and the larger Chapel Hill Carborough community. We have budgeted about $2,000 and $1,900 respectively for programming and speaker fees to ensure that these events are both as impactful and accessible as possible.
The Campus Y is an ever-evolving community, and as we grow, our needs and responsibilities grow with us. With these funds, we hope to continue our work and expand our positive impact to as many people as possible in the UNC community, as well as the larger Chapel Hill, Carborough area. Thank you for listening to us.
All right. If that is all, okay. Yes. All right. So under membership and impact, it says on the application that you have 0 dues paying or other members, as well as an impact of 0. I can only assume that this is a typo. So can you give some more clarification on the membership and impact that the Campus Y has?
Yeah, I actually sent a follow-up email right after it. I don't know if there was something going on with like the way I was submitting it or something, but it like didn't go through initially, and then once it went through, it like took away that section. But we don't have any dues paying members. We don't like enforce dues anymore. But we do just still like accept membership, and we have probably about It's hard to say because sometimes people are general members of the Campus Y, and like sometimes people decide to be more involved and to be like involved in as like part of the committees. But we said generally 3,000 to 4,000 people impacted by programming to give a more general idea, and we based that off of the co-president's estimations.
All right. Now, travel. On multiple events, it says a certain number in travel costs for volunteers without cars. Would this be, what would this travel money be used for?
I'm not sure there were quite a few committees. So I'm not sure exactly which events they decided to go to yet. But
I can help with them. Sorry, I had a
yeah.
little more involvement with looking at this part of the application. So that was for the committee project literacy. So what their committee leaders sent to us was that they needed a travel fund to help with transportation to book the Harvest Book Drive for volunteers going from Chapel Hill to Durham, which a lot of people don't really have access to cars. So I'm assuming what they meant by that was that they were looking to pay certain people to like certain members to carpool and take people to Durham, if that makes sense.
Okay, then with that information, we do have to follow a relatively rigid formula for calculating car rides in cars for gas reimbursements. That's 54 cents per mile per car for trips under 100 miles and 33 cents per mile per car for trips over 100 miles. So without those figures, we will not be able to fund travel. But beyond that, everything looks to be in order. So in terms of cutting this down to fit our budget, where do you want us to prioritize our funding?
You mean for which categories?
Yes.
Okay. Ultimately, I think supplies are like number one category, and I would say probably the next two. I'm not sure what you guys are thinking, but based on the numbers that the committees gave us, I would say speakers are the next most important, as well as programming.
All right.
And by programming, I guess we mean like, the money to rent those like buildings,
Yeah.
building rental.
All right, then in that case, I'm going to move that we fund building and venue rental at $1,000.
Second.
Let's see, supplies at 5,500.
Second.
Okay. Programming at $1,000.
Second.
And then speaker fees at $500.
Second.
And then clothing, equipment rental, printing and publicity, and travel at $0.
Second.
All right, so with that, the Campus Y has been appropriated $8,000 from the Undergraduate Senate. In terms of next steps, your organization's budget request will be finalized at the end of this month when the full Senate hears the budget bill along with all other organizations' funding requests. For tonight, though, that is all we have, so thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello.
Good evening. Are you with the Carolina Film Association?
Yes, I am.
All right, cool. Before we get started, I do want to preface this by saying that we're working within the confines of an $880,000 budget. This means that we will have to be funding organizations at a rate of about 45 to 50%. With that in mind, I will let you have the next 3 to 5 minutes to introduce your organization and give a bit of an outline on what you will need funds for this semester.
All right, sounds good. So my name is Anna Jane Baum, and I am the treasurer of the Carolina Film Association. So CFA is a student filmmaking collective with well over 250 undergraduate students from a variety of academic disciplines. CFA enables students to develop their cinematic craft and realize their vision by offering resources, guidance, and organization to student filmmakers. The Carolina Film Association's main goal as a filmmaking organization is to ensure filmmaking is as accessible as possible for all interested students. Because of this, we strive to provide our members with the equipment they'll need to produce their films, in addition to providing guidance and facilitating networking between student filmmakers. Any equipment CFA is able to provide its members would immediately be beneficial to our student filmmakers. The individual equipment expenditures are reflected in this funding proposal. So additionally, each year in the fall semester, CFA holds an event called Pitch Party, where producers and writers can showcase their approved scripts. This allows all interested attendees to explore and sort of apply as cast or crew for film productions. This event is crucial to providing networking opportunities for producers so that they have as much help as needed for their film. It's also vital in allowing creative students an opportunity to get involved with a project and refine their craft. So thus, CFA is requesting $100 in funds for publicity and printing. CFA also rents a portion of the cube outside of the student union to paint as part of the organization's effort to promote this event to a larger population of the student body. Thus, CFA is requesting $12 in funding to rent a portion of the cube leading up to Pitch Party. So in total, we are requesting $4,235.54 to be allocated towards this publicity as well as equipment.
All right, seems that all checks out in terms of our required formulas and permitted funding areas. On your application, it does say that your group appears to unfairly discriminate against certain individuals. Is this accurate?
I believe it is not.
Okay. Awesome, as long as we can get that confirmation. Then in that case, in terms of cutting down to fit the budget of the night, where do you want our efforts to, which funding category do you want our efforts to prioritize?
Preferably program 1, equipment.
Okay. Okay. All right, then in that case, I'm going to move that we fund the category of printing and publicity at $112.
Second.
All right. The category of capital expenditures, $1,200.
Second.
And the category of equipment rental at $1,000.
Second.
All right, so with that, The Carolina Film Association has been appropriated $2,312 from the Undergraduate Senate. In terms of next steps, your organization's budget request will be finalized at the end of this month when the full Senate hears the budget bill with all other organizations' funding requests, after which you will be able to apply for reimbursement. That is all that we have for you tonight, though, so thank you very much for coming.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too. Good evening. Before we get started, I do want to preface this by saying that we're working within the confines of an $880,000 budget. This means that we'll have to fund organizations at a rate of about 45 to 50%, but with that in mind, we'll give you the next 3 to 5 minutes to introduce your organization and give a bit of an outline on what you are requesting tonight.
Okay, so I'm with Handmade by Heels, which is a group of people who enjoy to craft. And what we do at our club is we have a bunch of projects that have been approved by UNC hospitals, and these include crochet blankets, crochet edge blankets, tie end blankets, stuffed animals, paper crane chains, just to name a few of them. And then what we do is we get all the supplies for that and we make the projects in our club, and then we donate them to the hospital. So it's a really great way for us to give back to the Chapel Hill community, and also for us to just engage and meet other crafters and other people who like to craft and make things. So for our funding, what we're requesting, all of the money would be going towards the materials for all of our projects. Our most popular project has been the crochet blanket, which uses 2 balls of yarn, and 1 ball of yarn, it's very like big fluffy yarn. So 1 ball is around $10, so a whole blanket would be $20 of just supplies. And then every meeting we had last year, we would get about 10 to 20 requests for that project alone, and we would meet twice a month. So every month we would get between 20 and 40 orders for just the blanket, which would end up being between $400 and $800 for just the blanket alone. And then we also would need to get the yarn for the crochet edge blankets and the felt for the fabric, and the stuffing for the stuffed animals and all of those materials. So we would be spending about $1,000 a month on projects just from the orders that we would have from the people in our club. So we just really want to be able to make sure that we can fulfill all those orders, and we can give as many projects to the people in the hospital as possible.
All right. That is all. On your application, it does say that your group is unwilling to identify student government as its sponsor. Is this accurate?
That isn't accurate. That was a
Okay.
complete misclick.
All right, cool. As long as we have that confirmation here now.
Mhm.
All right. Well, seeing as you put everything into one category, we don't need to ask which category you want to prioritize. So I'm going to move that we fund the category of supplies at $8,000.
Second.
All right. So with that, Handmade by Heels has been appropriated $8,000 from the Undergraduate Senate. In terms of next steps, your organization can, or your organization's budget request will be finalized at the end of the month when the full Senate here's the budget bill with all other organizations requesting funding. After this, you will be able to apply for reimbursement. That is all that we have for you tonight, however, so thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Good evening with Canvas. Okay. Good evening. Before we get started, I do want to preface this by saying we're working within the confines of an $880,000 budget. Due to this, we will need to fund organizations at a rate of about 45 to 50%. So keep this in mind as you go forward, but I'll give you the next 3 to 5 minutes to introduce your organization and describe what you need funding for.
Okay, am I ready? Okay, hi, my name is Georgia Burleson. I'm the treasurer of Blank Canvas Dance Company. Blank Canvas is the largest and most inclusive student-run club on dance group on campus. We are entirely student-run and student choreographed for all levels and all styles of dancing. We focus on not just the dancing portion, but also creating a support system for other students. We have lots of social events and really just want to create an inclusive place that students can continue to dance throughout college. We hold one showcase per semester, and last year we had over 1,400 people in attendance. We regularly have dance rehearsals Monday through Friday each week, and we offer social events and performance opportunities across campus as well. Our fall showcase this semester will be held at Memorial Hall, and we expect to have an audience of at least 1,000 people. We are requesting $11,578 for the cost of this show. The $1,150 equipment rental is $500 for the photographer and $650 for the videographer. The labor fees we're requesting $4,700, and that's for lighting and sound, the front of house manager, production manager, audience services and staff, and production staff. So everything that goes into making the show possible. And then the programming request for $5,718 is for insurance, security, costumes, housekeeping, ticket fees, and parking. So we really just want to emphasize the importance of the funding that we get to make this show possible. And in my opinion, our shows are what makes Blank Canvas so special. Thank you.
Muted. All right. Everything in terms of formulas and required areas seems to check out. So in terms now of cutting this down to fit the budget, where do you want us to prioritize our funds?
I would like to prioritize funding for the programming, as those are the biggest costs that we incur for the show.
All right. All right, then in that case, I am going to move that we fund the category of programming at $4,000. The category of labor fees at $1,250.
Second.
And the category of equipment rental at $750.
Second.
All right, so with this, Blank Canvas Dance Company has been appropriated $6,000 from the Undergraduate Senate. In terms of your next steps, your organization's budget request will be finalized at the end of this month when the full Senate hears the budget bill with all other organizations' funding requests. After this, you will be able to apply for reimbursements. But that's all that we have for you tonight, so thank you very much for coming.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Good evening. Are you here with the Information and Library Science Student Association?
I am not. I'm here with Blank Canvas. I'm texting my treasurer now. Did you already hear from her?
Yes, we just finished the hearing and appropriated your organization $6,000.
Okay, awesome. Is there anything else you need from me?
Not at this point, no.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
All right.
Hi, how's it going?
Good evening. Before we get started, I do want to preface this by saying that we're dealing with a budget of 880,000, which means we'll have to be funding organizations at a rate of about 45 to 50%. So keep this in mind as we go forward, but I will give you the next 3 to 5 minutes to introduce your funding request and what exactly your organization is requesting money for.
Okay, perfect. Well, hi everyone. I'm David. I'm the undergraduate president for the Information Library Science Student Association, or ILSA. ILSA comprises all of the students who are in the Information Library Science department, the school. Everyone's kind of technically already a part of it, and they're all dues paying in that a very small amount of their fee to be in the school goes to ILSA. However, it's very small. I think this year ILSA has access to like a couple $100s, which we're really mainly using for food. And so this year with ILSA, we want to do a couple different things that require additional funding. And this is why we're seeking undergraduate Senate funding. So the biggest thing is that we're wanting to host this speaker series where we bring a variety of speakers related to information library science to the university to give talks. And so the biggest funding request is $11,000 for honoraria. That's recognizing that there's a limit of 2,000 per speaker. We're not anticipating doing 2,000 each, but we understand the limit. And this we also want to do in collaboration with other organizations on campus that are in kind of the STEM area or social justice. So for instance, we're already in talks with groups like STEM Sisters to host specifically speakers that can speak to library and information science from a female perspective. We're also speaking with other organizations like Campus Y to talk about social justice in these spaces. So we're trying to create events where not only the members of ILSA, as in those within SILS, can attend, but also people in the broader university. And we already have support from faculty to do this in terms of them lending their networks. So we really just need the funding to be able to bring people. And the rest of the budget is for supplies and travel expenses. Supplies is really for any kind of activities that we do. For instance, during orientation for the sales department, we're hoping to do kind of activities with students. We might need supplies, including binders, color pencils, markers, etc. There's a lot of students that enter SILS, so not a lot, but not as much like Keenan Flagler, but it's large enough that those kind of small expenses add up if we're trying to do something with like a large incoming class. And finally, we want a travel budget to accommodate any trips. I think last semester, there was like a trip where a bunch of students went up to DC to the Library of Congress. So we're looking for a travel budget to be able to accommodate doing something similar, perhaps to the Library of Congress, perhaps doing multiple trips around North Carolina to relevant places, big libraries, things like that.
All right. Okay, so on the topic of those trips, would those be taken in cars?
So right now, I'm not sure. So that could either be with cars and then we do like the mileage estimate, or if there's a large enough group and not enough people with cars, doing like a private transportation. So through like I don't know, Carolina livery or something like that.
All right. In terms of travel, we do need to follow relatively rigid formulas in terms of gas reimbursement. So due to that, we would need these figures in advance. So if those are not present, we will not be able to fund travel. But in terms of cutting your budget down to fit our constraints, where do you want our efforts to be focused?
Let's see. I think the hardest thing for us would simply be, I think we can find other sources of funding for supplies and travel. So I think cutting those and maintaining as much of the speaker fee budget would be ideal.
Okay.
And it would just be easier for us logistically if the main funding from Undergraduate Senate was into one category.
Okay. Then in that case, I am going to move that we fund the category of speaker fees and honoraria at $8,500.
Second.
Then the categories of supplies and travel at 0.
Second.
Okay, so with that, the Information and Library Science Student Association has been appropriated $8,500 from the Undergraduate Senate. In terms of your next steps, your organization's budget request will be finalized at the end of this month when the full Senate hears the budget bill along with all other organizations' funding requests. Once this budget bill is passed, you will have the ability to apply for reimbursement. That's all that we have for you tonight, though. So thank you for coming.
All right, thank you very much. And if I have any questions about the reimbursement process, who's the best person to reach out to for that?
The reimbursement process
Specifically, because I know honoraria can be tricky since it's paying an individual. So I want to make sure I have that straight.
I believe the Carolina Union Business Office handles all of that.
Okay, perfect.
All right.
All right, thank you very much. Have a great night.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Here we go. All right, before we begin, I do want to preface this by saying that we're working within the confines of an $880,000 budget, which means that we will have to fund organizations at a rate of about 45 to 50%. But keeping that in mind as we go forward, I will give you the next 3 to 5 minutes to introduce your organization and give a bit of an outline on what your organization will need funds for this cycle.
Thank you for having us. My name is TJ White, the president of UNC Young Democrats. And that's our treasurer, Ceci Durlant. And we are requesting a number of things this semester. From our budget request, $1,750 for lodging. We know that the max amount that student government's able to give us, student senate is able to give us is $35 per night per student for lodging. And every fall, we go to DC to lobby the North Carolina delegation. We do that every fall break. And so with around 25 students, we figured that would come out to 2 nights for around 1,700. For building venue rental, we're planning to host a number of events outside of the university this semester. We're looking to host a Republican presidential debate watch party, and to rent out like a venue outside of campus. It can be anywhere in the range between like $500 to $700. And if we're trying to do like 2 or 3 events, come out with taxes included to around like 2,200, 2,400. And so we're really going to do that. We also like to host an end of year event as a kind of closure, a final hurrah. And so for that reason as well, we'd like to have that. We also do our driving up to DC. That's our biggest probably travel expense. And just measuring it off of the calculations and the restrictions that Student Senate has for about 5 cars up to DC for about 540 miles. It's going to be around $800 to $900. And that doesn't include other travel that we do, like we did today, up to the North Carolina General Assembly, up to Raleigh, which give or take could be like 30 miles. And so requesting around 1,000. That's just to reimburse ourselves and then others who are making these trips outside of campus. Dues and fees. We like to sponsor students who can't afford our $10 annual dues. And so $1,000 would allow us to sponsor 100 students. This may seem like a lot, but our current membership on Heal Life stands at around 200, give or take. But on GroupMe and on social media especially, that number goes up. So we just want to make sure that it's the most accessible organization to as many students as possible. We just hosted a rally today with around 100 students. 2 weeks ago, you probably heard that we hosted a rally with around 500 to 600 students on campus. And so we're really a large organization, and it's important for us that students have as many opportunities to join as they can. Printing, publicity. We also, for these events, we use a lot of flyers and postage. So it's important for us to have access to as much money in this area as possible. Last semester, when Mike Pence came to campus, we had a number of posters we printed around campus. That came out to around $550. And that was just for one event, right? And we've already posted one large event, as I just stated earlier, in this semester. So we're looking for around 1,500 in that area. And then program and speaker fees. In the past, UNC Young Dems has hosted Barack Obama, Bernie Sanders, Beto O'Rourke, and a number of other activists, those involved in political and politics here in North Carolina and the United States. So for us, it's really important that we have the needed funds to host these events and to have these speakers come out and have their time here covered. So we're looking for around 5,000 in that area. Equipment rental, it's hard for us, although the union has access to it, to get easy access to speakers, sound system, and like stages. So we're requesting around 1,600 for that. Again, we host a lot of big events, and as the 2024 election comes around the corner, that's going to ramp up a lot. And then lastly, supplies. We need about $500 for supplies. And that's just to make sure that we have our bread and butter materials for our day-to-day functions. So, postage, staples, paper, all that. So that's kind of a general overview of our budget outline that we requested. Ceci, do you have anything that you would like to add?
No, I think you covered everything. Thank you, TJ.
All right, that sounds good. A few things. You did say that the trip to Washington, D.C. would involve the lobbying of the North Carolina congressional delegation. By law, we are not permitted to fund either direct electioneering or direct lobbying of government, so we will not be able to fund any of the trip to Washington, D.C. Additionally, the dues and fees component of the application, we can also not fund dues or fees in this way. So with that in mind and those being struck, where would you like the rest of our funds to be prioritized?
Well, Ceci, if you have no objections to it, I'm going to say most of that go to building, venue rental. If we can't use those funds for lodging and travel, and I mean, we've used that. Is that a new rule that's been implemented? Because we've used funds, we've been reimbursed for funds for the DC trip in the past. So is that a new rule? Or
I can't speak to the actions of previous finance committee chairs, but I don't believe that has been a new development. I do think that has been the way things are for a while.
Okay.
Well,
yeah.
Also, sorry, did I interrupt anyone?
No, you're fine.
Also, like you said, building and venue rental, and also if TJ, you don't oppose speaker fees, maybe as well, would be our priority, if that's okay with you, TJ.
I would say if we have the funding that we requested for speaker fees, we should be good on that front. If there is another area where I think we could use some of the funding, not the majority of it, but maybe a third of the remaining funding, it would be with equipment rental. Yeah, I would say if a quarter of the remaining funds would be good for equipment rental.
All right. Then with that, I'm going to move that we fund the category of building venue rental at $2,450.
Second.
The category of equipment rental at $1,600.
Second.
The category of printing and publicity at $1,500.
Second.
and the category of speaker fees at $2,675.
Second.
And then finally, the categories of dues and fees, lodging and travel at 0.
Second.
All right. So with that, UNC.
With that said, we do have travel. We do have travel outside of our DC trip, but it does take up the bulk of it. So could we get some funds there? Could we get $250 for that?
I was about to say that, yeah.
Because we do have, as you just said, we make trips outside of UNC that don't have to do with directly lobbying or electioneering, right?
Okay. So we do have to go off of the strict formula, and that only appears to exist for the DC trip specifically. So we will not be able to fund travel as it is there, but
I have a question. I thought that travel and lodging were separate categories. So if lodging can't be funded because the description is the DC trip, for travel, we only requested like 900 for DC based on the mileage, but the rest, like we went today to Raleigh, for example, we're planning events with other organizations around the state. So that don't have to do with electioneering or lobbying. So I was wondering if we could get those instead.
I would just like to point out that we're working on a budget. So every organization that comes through is only going to get a fraction of the money that they request unless they request a very small amount of money. So
yes. And so in total, UNC Young Democrats has been appropriated $8,225 from the Undergraduate Senate. In terms of next steps, your organization's budget request will be finalized at the end of the month when the full Senate hears the budget bill with all other organizations' funding requests, after which you will be able to apply for reimbursement. If you decide later on during this year that these categories we have appropriated you funds in would be better used in other categories, you can reach out to the treasurer and work out a line item change to have those funds be moved elsewhere. But in terms of things for tonight, that is all that we have for you.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
You too. Good evening.
Hello.
All right, before we get started, I do want to well, state that we're working within the confines of an $880,000 budget, which means that we will have to fund organizations at a rate of about 45 to 50%. So keep that in mind as we go forward, but I will give you the next 3 to 5 minutes to introduce your organization and give us the outline of what you'll be applying for.
Right. So I'm representing the Carolina Indian Circle. We are the Native American student organization on campus. And ultimately, we are a support network for Native American, American Indian, and Indigenous identifying students. And our foundation is to support those students academically and culturally. And in our budget proposal, we proposed 3 main events that we host throughout the year. The first being our culture showcase. And our culture showcase is just what it stated. It's an opportunity for CIC to showcase our heritage and our culture through the broader student body, and offers an opportunity for us to educate campus on different aspects of Indigenous student life, Native culture, and our traditions. In this, we offer many different performances from tribal members, Indigenous students here on campus, and staff, whether that be from traditional flute songs, dancing, exhibitions, performances from both the Native American sorority and fraternity here on campus, and many other exhibitions offering a variety of different, I guess, displays of Indigenous culture throughout North Carolina and Turtle Island. In our scheduled events for this specific event, it will be in the Great Hall in September, and it'll be from around starting 3:30 to 9 p.m. And mainly what we need for this event is just supplies and funding for getting registration things set up and helping us with creating decorations for the space. Our second event is our Indigenous Peoples Day celebration. And this is an opportunity for CIC to celebrate what it means to be Indigenous and represent and showcase that we are still here throughout campus and surrounding Chapel Hill community. It's just a time for us to come together and celebrate our culture, our heritage, and our resilience as Indigenous people. This is going to be in October, this event. October 9th is Indigenous Peoples Day. And this event will be from around 5:30 to 9. It'll be in the gift, so right beside the Union. And really what we are asking for to be funded for this event is just supplies for our craft and activity we're going to do that night, labor for the Great Hall to rent that space out, given we need a rain location. And basically that's what will need to be covered or asking to be covered in our budget for that event. And then our largest event that we hold that is in our budget proposal is our powwow. And this is one of the largest collegiate powwows on the East Coast. It's an annual event for us, and this year will actually be our 43rd annual powwow for CIC. And this is a huge event that will run from starting 12 p.m. that day to 6 p.m. With participants. And what we're asking for is to help us fund for vendors information to rent tables, chairs, and help with any kind of materials that will be needed. So wristbands, paper, envelopes, things of that nature. And that's basically the large majority of our budget proposal for CIC for this upcoming year.
Okay, so in a few places, it does appear that you've applied for snack or food and drink. We are not allowed to fund food or drink for consumption outside of the food insecurity cycle. So we will not be able to provide money for that. Let's see. Everything else seems to check out. Now in terms of cutting this down to fit the budget, where would you like our efforts to be prioritized?
If we could have it prioritized to the powwow, I think that would be, or just as an organization, that is our main focus throughout the year. If budgetary wise, if it's going to have to be for one event, I think that would be what we would want to be focused, or funds to be focused to as an organization.
All right, and now for that, which funding categories like on the application at the top would you like us to focus our funds towards?
Let's see, I don't have the I guess the portal open, but I have my copy of my answers from the proposal. In terms of what category would it be possible to list them out?
Oh, I put the link to the appropriation site in the chat for you.
Great, thank you so much. I think to be focused, either equipment rental or our capital expenditures. Those are our two biggest categories annually that we spend money on for CIC, but mainly equipment rental has been a kind of a roadblock for us in terms of being able to afford that. So that would probably be number one.
And in that case, I'm going to move that in the category of supplies, we fund 400. In category of speaker fees, we fund 300.
Second.
Programming 500.
Second.
Printing and publicity 50.
Second.
Equipment rental 3,000.
Second.
Clothing 500.
Second.
Capital expenditures 1,575.
Second.
And building venue rental 100.
Second.
All right, so with that, Carolina Indian Circle has been appropriated $6,425 from the Undergraduate Senate. In terms of next steps, your organization's budget request will be finalized at the end of this month when the full Senate hears the budget bill with all other organizations' funding requests. Once this budget bill is passed, you will have the ability to apply for reimbursement. That, in terms of tonight, however, that is all we have for you. So thank you for coming.
Thank you all so much for your time. Have a great night.
You too. Good evening, Caroline. Fever. Okay. Good evening. Before we get started, I do want to preface this by saying we're working within the confines of an $880,000 budget. This means that we'll have to fund organizations at a rate of about 45 to 50%. With that being said, I will give you the next 3 to 5 minutes to introduce your organization and give an outline of what you'll need funds for.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So we're Carolina Fever, which is actually the largest student-run organization on campus. We support all of the non-revenue sporting events. So we encourage people to go to things like women's soccer, lacrosse, field hockey, and incentivize those with tickets to football and basketball games. So what we are asking for is some supplies for pregame events, such as poster making, like what we do for college game day before the big Duke game at home. In the past, we've done something like this, and we bring in a lot of people, but we could do a whole lot more and reach a whole lot more students if we had funds for more posters and paint up before football games. This is a great way to encourage school spirit, but we just don't have the funds to have supplies for things like that. And also a fall charity event. We've been doing this for a couple years now, but we want to increase our capacity to support more students and therefore make a larger donation to the charity of our choice. In the past, we've worked with Versus Cancer, and that's gone really well. I'm not sure what we'll do this year. We have some more ideas, but that's something we definitely want to do to increase involvement with Fever and reach out to the community. And I'll pass it to John.
Yeah, so the next thing, we'd like funding to have a director uniform. So we have about 25 directors on our executive team. And a big responsibility for us is being present at games, both leading the student section in cheers, but also being a resource for students who have questions about game day or Fever specifically. Right now, we're not very recognizable. We have Carolina Fever t-shirts, but those go to all students. And so a lot of students aren't able to recognize us in a crowd. And so they go to event management instead, which puts an extra burden on them. And then they don't have the answers for Fever related questions. So if we had a game day director uniform that we could wear, make us more recognizable, look a little bit more organized and professional, and help students be able to find us more easily. And we don't want to make directors feel pressured to pay for this uniform. So having funding would allow us to use Senate funding to purchase that. And we would also use locally sourced manufacturers so that it has a good impact on the local community. And then our last thing is travel reimbursement. So typically we get tickets to one away football game in the fall through our funding with athletics. But this is, while we're able to provide tickets to students, we can't cover travel costs currently. And this makes it inaccessible to students who may not have the funds or the transportation means to travel to an away game. And so being able to provide travel reimbursement makes that more accessible to students who may not otherwise have the means to travel to an away game. And makes it, instead of a privilege just for students who have vehicles and disposable income to pay for gas money, makes it accessible to all students. And we can also use this to encourage carpooling to games, reducing carbon emissions of students traveling to that event.
All right. Well, it appears that all proper formulas were followed correctly. So since we will have to cut this down to fit within the budget, of course, which funding categories would you like us to prioritize our efforts towards?
Yeah, so actually, I'm going to go the opposite of that. Instead of prioritizing, I'll say right now, I think I overestimated a bit how much travel reimbursement funding we would need. We could probably cut that at least in half. We were waiting on numbers from the athletics department on how many tickets we would receive. And Clemson, I think I'd put in our application that we were looking at the Clemson football game, and tickets to Clemson football games are much more expensive than what athletics has provided for us in the past. So the number of students and therefore the number of drivers we would have to reimburse is probably around half of what we'd put in there. So we could go ahead and cut that down, which is a significant portion of what we had requested. And then I think, Lydia, feel free to give input here as well, but for our priorities, I think the fall charity event is probably one of our top priorities, as well as director uniforms. Those are the two main things. The pregame events is, we like to do it, but we have some supplies and it's not as big of a part of what we do on campus. So I would say travel reimbursement could definitely get cut down, but prioritize the fall charity event and director uniforms.
We have some directors that are willing to put forward their own money for some pregame events like posters and paint and stuff. That would not be ideal, but that's something that we can kind of compromise on.
All right. With that in mind, I'm going to move that we fund the category of clothing at $5,415.
Second.
The category of supplies at $623.95.
Second.
And then the category of travel at $2,673.
Second.
All right. So with that, Carolina Fever has been appropriated $8,711.95 from the Undergraduate Senate. In terms of next steps, your organization's budget request will be finalized at the end of this month when the full Senate hears the budget bill with all other organizations' funding requests. After this is passed, you'll be able to apply for reimbursement. In terms of tonight, though, that is all that we have for you. So thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
All right. Good evening, Alpha Chi Sigma.
Hi, how are you guys?
Good. Okay. Good evening. I want to preface this all by saying that we are working within the confines of an $880,000 budget. Due to this, we are forced to fund organizations at a rate of about 45 to 50%. So keep that in mind as we go forward tonight. But I will give you the next 3 to 5 minutes to introduce your organization and what a general overview of what you'll be applying for, what you are applying for funds for.
Okay, so hi everyone. Alpha Chi Sigma, or AX, is asking for $8,045. The oldest and largest chemistry professional development co-ed organization on campus, AX is the only organization that brings together chemistry and non-chemistry majors alike. Although the fraternity encourages scholarship, leadership, and excellence in the field of chemistry, people of all majors are welcome to join. Chemistry majors only make up about 50% of our fraternity, while the rest are STEM and other humanities majors. We have around 75 due-paying brothers and 88 members on our Heal Life page, indicating a high retention rate. One of AX's integral pillars is to prioritize service. Beginning during the rush process, before students have even pledged, rushees write cards to children in the UNC
Children's Hospital. Throughout the year, we also table at the Moorhead Planetarium Science Expo to help young students learn more about science and guide them through simple experiments like making lava lamps. We also have donated to the International Rescue Committee through we have also donated to the International Rescue Committee through one of our many fundraisers. In the past, we have not requested funding as we have been a small organization. However, in the past year, we have tripled in size and want to continue being accessible to all students even as our numbers increase. One of the major parts of our funding request includes facilitating Rush, which is a non-binding and free string of events that anyone can join to learn more about ACTS and decide if they want to pledge, which is a semester-long process. We will also purchase and maintain regalia for initiation rituals that have been a tradition for over 120 years at this university. Since our demand to pledge has skyrocketed in the past year, it is a necessity that we have the resources to create a sustainable growth in the fraternity. Does anyone have any questions?
All right. A few things that I've noticed. You have in a few areas applied for funds for food. As per the code, we are not allowed to fund food for consumption outside of the food insecurity allocation.
Okay.
So we will not be able to provide funds in these categories.
Okay.
Let's see. Beyond that, oh yes, you applied for funds in the invalid postage category. That is not a category that we fund, so we will not be able to provide that money either. All right. Beyond that, everything seems to check out. Okay, so where would you like our funds to prioritize, since we will need to cut down to fit within the budget?
Yeah, great question. It is kind of a close tie between clothing and supplies, but we would prioritize supplies just because supplies help us create bigger rush events, create and sustain service opportunities as well. So just so that we can increase outreach, as well as serve our community as best as possible and be as accessible to UNC students. So I think supplies would be number one.
All right. Then with that, I'm going to move that we fund the category of supplies at $1,065.
Second.
Oh. Duncan, did you have a
Yeah,
question?
I just had a quick question. The category, when you say like the categories that have food in them that we can't fund them at all, does
Mhm.
that mean they're not like are we able to like amend them now quickly and remove the amounts that would go towards food?
In the interest of time, I would say no, but I would like, just in terms of, I guess I'd move that to where you'd want to prioritize your funds.
Okay, okay, that's fine. I was just saying because food ends up coming to about $100 like total in that in those
That
categories. So
that can be
I'm just saying if you're not going to consider the category at all because of that.
That can just be part of the half of the budget request that gets cut to fit within the budget. That'll
Okay,
be
sure.
fine.
Perfect. Thank you.
And then after that, I'm going to move that we fund the category of clothing at 1,500.
Second.
The category of programming at 795.
Second.
The category of building venue rental at 800.
Second.
And then the categories of labor fees, lodging, postage, printing and publicity, and travel at 0.
Second.
All right, so with that, Alpha Chi Sigma has been appropriated $4,160 from the Undergraduate Senate. In terms of your next steps, your organization's budget will be finalized at the end of this month when the full Senate hears the budget bill with all other organizations' funding requests. Once that is passed, you'll be able to apply for reimbursement. In terms of tonight, however, that is all that we have. So thank you for coming.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you.
All right. Good evening with the Loreleis. Okay. Before we begin, I want to preface this by saying that we're working within the confines of an $880,000 budget. So we will have to fund organizations at a rate of about 50%. So keep that in mind as we go forward. But I'll give you the next 3 to 5 minutes to present your organization and what you'll need funding for.
Yeah, absolutely. Good evening, everyone. My name's Macy Lee. I'm the treasurer for the Loreleis. As a reminder, we're an Upper Voices a cappella group founded in 1981. And did you want, just a clarifying question, would you like me to go through the programs or kind of where we fall within the 5 pillars of the funding criteria?
Go through what you're applying for, like on the application website.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So we've requested the total amount of 15 grand. I understand the budget you guys are working with, but I thought I'd shoot for the moon, I guess. But our professional labor fees, 13,500, building and venue rental, 1,500. So our first program would be the UNC Loreleis Fall Jam, which is scheduled for November 17th, 6 p.m. at the Unit Auditorium. It's a 2-hour show, and it's basically all the songs that we rehearse throughout the semester. It's definitely a very vital program to us because it's what we spend all semester doing. Every single semester I've been in the group, it's sold out. This year it will be held at the Graham Frank Porter Union. And in order to stage such an event, we need guest services staff, box office staff, lighting, photography, and all of the above. All of the things that I've listed have been approved and are ready to go. The numbers have actually changed. So our photography fee is 300 still. Videography, we've settled for 400. Sonark's handling our sound for 2,500, and we have lighting 500. So we would need around 3,500 to make that event happen. Our second is we're releasing Destiny's Child EP. So last spring, we did this arrangement at our concert. It was a crowd favorite. So we're recording 5 mini tracks. Pablo Vega, who's actually an ex-Clef hanger and does our recording and mixing, has settled for 1,755 on that. Our third programs are Fall Brunch that happens the day after our fall concert. We're holding it at the Story venue, and the venue price is 1,500. And this is a chance for us to bring the community together. Lorelei alumni fly down for it, and kind of meet the current girls in the group. And our last program would be an album. It's released in the spring. However, we have to pay for 7 of the songs in this fall semester, so that payment has to be made in the fall. Each song that we record is $1,585, and we'll be recording 7 songs in the fall semester. So the studio time, recording and mixing for that would be very expensive, and we're requesting 8,245 to offset. Yeah, and I wanted to kind of touch on our representation. We do have a big reach with our student body. The number of 800s on relatively conservative. We were asked to perform at important events like Late Night with Hubert Davis. Just 2 weeks ago, we sang at the Campus Visual. Our concerts normally sell out with people standing in the back. We also had the highest number of auditionees this year out of all groups with 95 signups. We've been around for 42 years. And yeah, in terms of specialization, we're one of 2 upper voices a cappella groups on campus. And yeah, we've performed at the White House, Good Morning America, won 18 Contemporary a cappella Recording Awards. So yeah, all the programs are definitely very vital to the morale of our organization as a whole. And yeah, everything's kind of been approved, and that's kind of my budget proposal. I know it's super late, so thank you guys for taking the time to listen and consider.
Of course.
And you can ask any question.
Now, everything seems to check out in terms of allowed funding and formulas. So I will just ask, since we will have to cut this down to fit the budget, where you want those funds to be prioritized.
Our funds, I would say definitely fall concert completely, like being covered would be such a huge help and very important to us, because again, that's the culmination of everything we're doing. And then the rest going to the release of the spring 2024 album that we'll be paying for in the fall would be amazing. But definitely fall concert, and then whatever budget we could possibly have left, or we'd be grateful to put towards the recording costs.
Then in that case, I'm going to appropriate $1,500 in the category of building venue rental.
Second.
And $6,500 in the category of labor fees.
Second.
Amazing.
All right, so with that, the UNC Loreleis have been appropriated $8,000 from the Undergraduate Senate. In terms of next steps, your organization's budget request will be finalized at the end of this month, when the full Senate hears all of the budget, or when the full Senate hears the budget bill, which will include all organizations' budget requests. After this is passed, you will be able to apply for reimbursement. That's all that we have for you tonight, though, so thank you for coming.
Thank you so much, all 4 of you. And I very greatly appreciate that. Is awesome. I can't wait to tell the rest of the Loreleis, and you guys have a great rest of your week. And I'll be looking for next steps.
All right. Thank you. Have a good one.
Good luck. Bye.
All right. Tyler from the Air Power Association, correct?
Yes.
All right. Before we begin, I do want to preface this by saying we're working within the confines of an $880,000 budget. This means that we will have to fund organizations at a rate of about 50%. So keep that in mind going forward, but I'll give you the next 3 to 5 minutes to introduce your organization and describe what you'll need funds for.
Yes, absolutely. And I just wanted to let you all know, there's one other officer who should be attending. It's Kristen Snyder. So if she requests to enter the breakout room,
all right.
She's Great. So yes, I'm part of the Air Power Association, which is the primary organization that supports all funding for Air Force ROTC at UNC. And so our primary functions are to provide funds for things like supplies for our training periods, things like dues and fees or programming fees for booking locations for our training. We also have some supplementary events throughout the semester that include, we have a Military Appreciation Day game tailgate where we host a lot of prior UNC alumni who are also tend to be veterans who come back and participate just and engage with current cadets. We also have something called Dining In, which is a semesterly dinner where we host ROTC cadets from UNC and then also from other schools around the area. We have bonding events that are to really promote camaraderie within our cadets. And so those again look like booking locations and also purchasing supplies for those kind of things. And then finally, we also are in charge of funding all clothing that is outside of uniform supplied by the Air Force. So we do request a lot of funds in terms of clothing for additional t-shirts and also things like color guard uniform items because that falls under our jurisdiction as well. Do you all have any questions I could answer?
Okay. The travel request of $100. So we have to follow a relatively rigid formula when it comes to calculating the amount that we can fund gas reimbursement by. So does this $100 follow any specific formula?
I think yes, I am familiar that it's like a certain amount per mile or something like that that you all do. This is more of an estimate. $100 is an estimate. I think the exact breakdown is like 90 something for how much we anticipate that they'll be traveling. I'll be honest, the travel is not as much of a concern. So if that $100 is something that you would like to reallocate somewhere else, that's fine. You can disregard the travel.
Okay. Then I guess after that, since we will need to cut this down to fit the budget, where do you want our efforts to focus the funding towards?
Yes, so our primary areas that we look for are supplies, guest speaker, and clothing. Yes. Or I'm sorry, not guest speaker, programming. So supplies, programming, and clothing.
Then in that case, I'm going to move that we fund the category of supplies at 1,520.
Second.
The category of clothing at 1,420.
Second.
The category of programming at 1,000.
Second.
And the categories of dues and fees, speaker fees, and travel at 0.
Second.
All right. So with that, the Air Power Association has been appropriated $3,940 from the Undergraduate Senate. In terms of your next steps, your organization's funding request will be finalized at the end of this month when the full Senate hears the budget bill with all other organizations requesting funding. After this bill is passed, you'll be able to apply for reimbursements, and that is all that we have for you tonight. So thank you for coming.
Thank you. Could you please repeat one more time how much you allotted in supplies?
Supplies was the full 1,520.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you all so much. Have a great evening.
Right.
Bye.
Subcommittee 2 is currently working on their last group, so once they're done, I'll send us all back to finish up for the night.
Talk to you later.
Oh, okay. Which organization are you here? Oh. Okay. All right. We are done. Now, looking at the budgets. Subcommittee 1 is 1,600 under budget. Subcommittee 2 is 3,500 over budget. That leaves us, let's see, 1,900 over budget. But yeah, we are safely over budget or under budget the previous 2 meetings, so I do not believe that it will be necessary for us to reconcile this budget. All right, that is all that we have tonight. Only one more meeting of this cycle next, well, not next Thursday, this Thursday. After that, we will be done with hearings for a little while. Won't hold up any more of your time, so I will call this meeting to adjourn at 11:09 p.m. Thank you all so much for your hard work in this process. Have a good one.
Good job, y'all.
Good job, guys.
Good night.